O eternal and almighty God, from whom all power and wisdom come, we are assembled here before thee to frame such laws as may tend to the welfare and prosperity of our province. Grant, O merciful God, we pray thee, that we may desire only that which is in accordance with thy will, that we may seek it with wisdom, know it with certainty, and accomplish it perfectly. For the glory and honor of thy name and for the welfare of all our people. Amen. We acknowledge we are gathered on Treaty 1 territory, and that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota Oiete, Dene Sulene, and Neothorg nations. We acknowledge Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in a spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. Please be seated. Routine proceedings, introduction of bills. Committee reports. Tabling of reports. Ministerial statements. Member statements. The Honourable Member for Kildonan River East.
Honourable Speaker, I rise today to recognize the incredible and lasting legacy of Millennium Gardens as they celebrate their 25th anniversary right here in Kildonan River East. I ask for leave to have the names of my guests entered into Hansard. I was proud to attend this celebration alongside local elected officials from all levels of government. Moments like this remind us that when we show up for our communities, work together, and put people first, we can accomplish great things for our shared constituents. Founded in 2002, Millennium Gardens was created to provide a safe and welcoming space for seniors in our community to connect, garden, and spend time outdoors. It continues to serve as a place where neighbors who may have downsized from homes with yards to apartments or condos can still enjoy access to green space and the benefits of gardening. Today, the gardens are more vibrant than ever. The summer season now includes exercise classes, evening concerts, and educational sessions that welcome both experienced gardeners and those simply looking to connect with others in their community. At its heart, Millennium Gardens is also a model for environmental stewardship. Through the planting of native species and the use of ecological gardening practices, the volunteer team supports biodiversity, promotes healthy soil, and contributes to climate action in a meaningful and practical way. Millennium Gardens is a true reflection of what can be achieved when caring Manitobans come together. For 25 years, this space has strengthened both the Cheapeguis Greenway ecosystem and the surrounding neighborhood through the dedication of its volunteers. I ask all members in this chamber to please rise to join me in thanking just some of the many volunteers that make this space incredible for Kildonan River East.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
I am pleased to rise in the House today to recognize Nathan Frabe, a grade 12 student from Carman Collegiate. Nathan is just one of 36 recipients across Canada who has won the prestigious Lawrence Scholarship, one of Canada's most competitive and sought-after awards for youth leadership. Nathan joins us today in the gallery with his parents Murray and Victoria and brother Quinn. The Lawrence Scholarship seeks to identify young students with a guiding sense of purpose, those who demonstrate exceptional strength of character, deep commitment to community service, and potential to lead with integrity. The application is rigorous and a multi-stage process. The scholarship is valued at over $100,000 over 4 years and includes one-on-one mentorship with a business or community leader. Nathan joins a list of accomplished alumni from the scholarship that includes CEOs, NASA engineers, folks in medicine, Rhodes Scholars, and Supreme Court of Canada clerks, to name a few. Nathan comes from a multi-generational farm in Homewood and plans to attend the University of Guelph, considering studies in agribusiness or crop science, with a long-term interest in sustainable agriculture. One of his goals is to leave the soil in a better place for the next generation. And Nathan, knowing your family and the team at Agassiz Seeds, who have been farming sustainably since the 1920s, you are well prepared to take this into the future. Nathan is regularly active in serving his community. He's the co-founder and leader of a local youth initiative dedicated to nurturing kindness and volunteerism. He serves on a community board to address poverty and promoting wellness. In addition to his schoolwork, community commitments, and athletics, he's also built and operated a home service business. Nathan, I wish you so much success in university and beyond. I look forward to hearing regular updates from your parents and cannot wait to see where your commitment to service takes you in the future. Congratulations.
The Honourable Member for Elmwood.
Honourable Speaker, on March 13th, as Elmwood MLA, along with my colleagues representing Northeast Winnipeg, members for Concordia, Kildonan River East, Radisson, Rossmere, and Transcona, joined the Premier and the Minister of Health, Seniors, and Long-Term Care at the announcement of a $2.7 million initiative in advanced spine surgery technology at Concordia Hospital. This new technology will improve access to care, reduce wait times, and speed up patient recovery. Patients who once faced long waits and extended hospital stays can now receive minimally invasive procedures using advanced 3D imaging and precision-guided technology. This surgery won't require big incisions. These innovations mean most patients can return home the same day, recovering faster and getting back to their daily lives sooner. Honourable Speaker, this initiative is also positioning Manitoba as a leader in specialized care. Concordia Hospital is now recognized as a spine center of excellence, attracting surgeons from across Canada and around the world to train here in Winnipeg. This not only strengthens our healthcare system today, but helps train the next generation of skilled professionals for tomorrow. Most importantly, the impact on patients is profound. Everyone knows someone in their lives suffering chronic back pain. This important treatment option will help them gain their mobility, independence, and quality of life, returning to everyday activities, work, and even travel without discomfort. Thank you and congratulations to Carrie Froome, President of Concordia Hospital, and orthopedic spine surgeon Dr. Jay Tour and his team. This is what rebuilding healthcare looks like: investing in innovation, expanding capacity, and putting patients first. Thank you.
Good job, Jamie.
The Honourable Member for Lac du Bonnet.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Today we gather to recognize an important milestone in our province. School Bus Driver Day in Manitoba. I had the pleasure of introducing the legislation. Bill 214 was a significant step towards honouring those who ensure Manitoba children's safety on their journeys to and from school. As a former teacher who relied on school buses daily, we thank each and every one of you out there. On June 30th, 2015, when I was in opposition, our Legislative Assembly unanimously approved this bill, setting aside the third Wednesday of April each year to celebrate our dedicated bus drivers. And they continue to this day fostering a safe and nurturing environment. School bus drivers play a vital role in our communities, providing safe and reliable transportation for all Manitoba students. They are often the first and last adults students see each school day. Fostering a sense of security and routine, with their friendly smiles and warm greetings, they create a welcoming atmosphere that helps students feel comfortable and valued. I would like to put on the record, Honourable Speaker, a few bus drivers that have left lasting impressions on many of our lives throughout Manitoba. Mr. Art Lutzek, who actually was my bus driver and who was the main person that I brought forward this bill back in 2015. We had Mr. Gimitrowski, we had Ms. Greszczuk, we had Gail, Tiny Tim, Jackie, Jody, Alan, Lauren, Ron, Kevin, Mr. Daggs, who recently has just passed. We had John McKee, Larry Lakushchuk, and many, many other great school bus drivers in this great province of ours, Honourable Speaker. I would like and ask my colleagues to stand up today and recognize the over 100 school bus drivers that are watching online virtually today, Honourable Speaker.
Prior to oral questions, there's some guests in the gallery I'd like to introduce. We have seated in the public gallery from Valley Gardens School, 90 grade 6 students under the direction of Alana Stromberg. And this group is located in the constituency of the Honourable Member for Concordia. We welcome you here today. And I would also like to draw the attention of all honourable members to the public gallery, where we have with us today Vera Stacy, Kieko Ulrich, Gordon Weber, Mel Saunders, Maurice Bernardin, who are guests of the honourable member for Kildonan River East. And on behalf of all honourable members, we welcome you here today. Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Went to Ottawa and came back with nothing. No major projects, no investments, no economic opportunity. And worse, no commitment from Mark Carney on the Port of Churchill. Let's be clear, economic growth is essential for the province of Manitoba. Economic growth is the Prime Minister's primary motivation. So, the Premier was walking through an open door, but Manitobans got nothing. Even the Premier's own $500,000 American trade rep is worried. To quote Richard Madden, he says, "If there continues to be a feasibility studies or discussion, but no action, that could be problematic." End quote. Well, guess what? We are seeing no action under this NDP government. Manitoba has no major projects, no hope of one under this NDP government. When will the Premier put economic growth at the forefront of his plans, or does he simply not have a plan to grow Manitoba's economy?
Good question. Good question.
The Honourable First Minister.
Honourable Speaker, I want to thank so many members of the federal government because, sometimes when you reach out to people in politics, it always feels like you're fighting and negative and all that. Yeah. But when we reach out to the federal government, it's like we have a partner. Yeah. Somebody's going to help us. So I want to begin by thanking Minister Eleanor Olszewski, who is helping us with the response to Peguis and some of the other surrounding communities like Fisher River and their request to prepare for potential flooding this spring. I got to say, not only are these challenging, important conversations, but they're made that much easier by having a federal partner who's very positive and solution-oriented. And I go beyond that to say that attitude goes right to the Prime Minister. And so in our meeting yesterday, we aligned very much on the Port of Churchill. We signed a cooperation agreement, which means that people are going to get to work in this province, building up our economic future, and we're going to get out of the way by making sure that anytime there's one project...
time has expired. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
There you have it, Manitoba. The Premier has no economic plans. That's just the facts. The economy in Manitoba is ranked dead last under this NDP government. The Premier has done nothing to improve Manitoba's economic future. And when he had a chance to secure the deal with the Prime Minister and actually move money into this province to grow our economy, he came back with more Pictures of him smiling, Honorable Speaker. No deals, no memorandums of understanding, absolutely nothing. The Premier's own hand-picked trade reps is worried about the economic future of this province. Months ago, this Premier promised big announcements about Churchill. Where are those announcements? Manitobans are wising up to the simple fact that this Premier is full of big, fake announcements, just like he's trying to do here today. So to the Premier, when will Manitobans see a real announcement for economic prosperity on the Port of Churchill and for all
Hammer's time has expired. The Honourable First Minister.
Yesterday. We were there in the Prime Minister's office. We shook hands. Right. We signed the cooperation agreement. We're moving forward to build up the Port of Churchill. Yes. I'll contrast that to what the PCs did for 7 long, boring years full of cuts in Manitoba. Yeah. All they wanted to do was fight the federal government, and they weren't even good at that. No. Justin Trudeau came and went, but their government came and went even more quickly than him. That's right. And so while I wish him well as his new partner, Katy Perry, we're hard at work with the new federal government and the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney. Yeah. So while some folks are probably doom-scrolling Coachella updates, we're working for you. Right. We're building up northern Manitoba, we're building up the south, and we're building a bright future for all of our kids.
That's right.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
The Premier says he signed a cooperation agreement. Where is it? How many jobs? How much money is coming to the province? And when will this really materialize? Manitoba is a resource economy. Whether agriculture or mines or manufacturing or resources, they all drive Manitoba's economy. But industry is fleeing under this NDP government because they have destroyed economy and they've destroyed private sector investment. And now the Premier is putting up another barrier for private industry to work in Manitoba. The Manitoba Crown Indigenous Corporation. More red tape, more duplication of efforts, less investments, less economic growth, and nothing tabled by this NDP Premier. Absolutely nothing from this Premier on that. Why is this government so bent on making it harder for private business to participate and grow Manitoba's economy?
The Honourable First Minister.
Honourable Speaker, everybody I talk to in Manitoba is so excited about the opportunity we have in Churchill.
That's right.
Well, everybody I hear from except for a couple people. But we don't let the negative downer types hold us back. No. Future in this province is going to be built by young people, and it's going to be built by people with dreams and people with ambition. Yep. Of course, the PCs are looking at themselves, great, where does that leave us? That's right. When it comes to the future of this province, we're going to work hard to make sure that Manitobans are trained, Manitobans have the capital, and Manitobans have the opportunity. And when future historians look back at this period and they look at us building the Port of Churchill to reach Europe, to reach Asia, you know what they're going to say? When America and Donald Trump threatened our country, it was Canada that stood up and saved the day. There you go.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a new question.
The federal government was able to take action yesterday when Prime Minister Mark Carney announced that he's cutting the federal portion of the fuel tax until Labor Day. The Prime Minister knows that gas taxes are out of control, that gas prices are out of control, and is taking real steps to help Canadians today. Manitoba's Premier, what is he doing? Nothing. He wants to wait another month. Maybe he'll order a new study. Maybe he'll do nothing, or maybe he will continue to blame others for his failures. The Premier can sign a paper today to eliminate the provincial gas tax for Manitobans permanently that are struggling to fill up their tanks. Will he do it, or will he let Mark Carney continue to do the hard work for him?
The Honourable First Minister.
This guy loves our 2023 election campaign. We cut the gas tax, we save you money, and then we cut the gas tax permanently to save you even more money. That's all they have, is recycling our old announcements. I congratulated the Prime Minister yesterday on his new majority government. I also said the first thing that our government did when we formed a majority was to cut the gas tax in Manitoba, and it brought down inflation, and I congratulated him on cutting the federal gas tax, which will bring inflation down naturally. So this is how you work together. You share great ideas, and you share credit, and you give credit where credit is due. On the other side, they charge a gas tax on you and your family every single day they were in office. You can't believe anything that they say now that they want to get reelected. You can trust our actions to help you save money.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a supplementary question.
The Premier is clearly living in the past. Gas prices right now are at historic highs under this NDP government. The Premier thinks that a gas tax holiday was the best thing a government in Manitoba has ever done. We all know that is laughable, but this Premier actually seems to believe it. He went out of his way yesterday in an awkward moment to mention to Mark Carney how he put a gas tax pause on but refuses to do one today. The Premier can do it today. The Premier can permanently cut the gas tax here in the province of Manitoba to provide real relief and real affordability for Manitobans today. Will the Premier stand up today and make that announcement that he's going to remove the provincial gas tax today permanently for Manitobans?
The Honourable First Minister.
So what? Like, when we cut the gas tax, he said it was bad? Yeah. But now he wants us to cut the gas tax again?
You're disgusting.
The members opposite don't make any sense. We know what it...
Order, please. Stop the clock. Order, please. Order. Order. We can stop hollering back and forth across the way. Because when everybody's hollering, I don't hear what's being said. So we need to stop it. Yesterday we had a pretty good day. Let's do that again today. The Honourable First Minister, I believe, had the floor.
All right, we're okay. So, Honourable Speaker, I'll just point out the member for Lactabani continues to heckle even after your interjection. But when it comes to saving people money, you know what we followed up the gas tax cut with? We cut your property taxes. Yep. We made life more affordable by freezing hydro rates. And you know what we're doing on Canada Day of this year? We're taking the tax off of all food and drinks at the grocery store. Actions speak louder than words. Our actions are to cut taxes and save you money. Their actions, well, you can see them right now. Yeah.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition on a final supplementary question.
The Premier's answer right there tells you how out of touch he is with reality. Food prices are higher than they've ever been. Food suppliers and grocery chains are now starting to add a fuel surcharge on their goods. This means that groceries soon and basic personal items will be even more expensive under this NDP government because they refuse to act. The tiny savings, the pennies that this NDP government are saving you in their NDP budget will be swallowed up by fuel surcharges added on under this NDP government. Manitobans will be left out without any help at the grocery store, and those so-called savings of pennies will be gone. The Premier can avoid this future for Manitobans today. He can permanently remove the provincial gas tax today and help you and your family to make your life more affordable. Will he do it, yes or no?
The Honourable First Minister.
Why are they clapping though? Yeah. Like, I mean, he was in cabinet when gas was $2 a litre here in Manitoba. Right. Yep. That is the high point of gas prices in Manitoba, and he sat at the cabinet table. And you know what he did? Nothing. He didn't do nothing. They charged the gas tax every single day. We came in, we cut the gas tax, it brought down inflation. That's right. It was a good move. And so when he raises this political issue, he's raising one of the positive things that Manitobans like that we've done. That's great. Let's keep talking about it. On their side, he's hired a Liberal as a campaign manager. I'm not sure if the PC caucus knows about this. They're paying for it, for the record. Winnipeg Sun reported on that. But I'll table these documents that show that the Alberta Liberal Party, under the direction of Stephen Carter, is running ads against the United Conservative Party, Danielle Smith's party. So I don't know how that plays out in Borderland or in...
Member's time has expired. The honourable member for Borderland. Order. The honourable member for Borderland.
The Manitoba Jobs Agreement is so bad that not only have the 3 largest construction associations in the province issued a warning to companies about the risks of bidding on public projects, but they've also asked the Auditor General to investigate the deal. The MGA gives the government the authority to collect 85 cents or more for every labour hour, which comes to $1 million on the 4 schools that are supposed to be built. The problem is that when asked, the building trades, who will collect this money, say it's for administration, while this minister, after repeated questions from media, could only say safety training. This is what corruption looks like. So I'll give the minister yet another chance to clear the air. Can he tell us, where is this money going?
The Honourable First Minister.
You know, last week I was on Golden West Radio. We were talking about the minimum wage that's going up in Manitoba, and the radio host, I guess a former colleague of this member, asked, well, what about the people who make more than minimum wage? And what are you going to do to make sure that their wages go up and keep pace with the increases to minimum wage? And I really wish I had delivered this live on the radio, but I'll say it now. That's a union. What you're talking about there is a union. If you want people's wages to go up over time in the building trades, for the electricians, for the carpenters, have a union. It raises wages for everybody in the community, including non-union members. So for young people who are thinking about how do I get involved in the Port of Churchill, how do I build up Manitoba's future? Well, one of the ways that you can get started is calling your local union hall, asking if you can apprentice, and ask to earn a red seal to get your ticket. Right. This is how we're going to build Manitoba together, not by trying to tear each other apart like the PCs.
The honourable member for Borderland on a supplementary question.
You know, this isn't about union or non-union. This is about worker choice, and the Premier should respect worker choice. Manitoba's construction associations are alarmed that this NDP government is giving itself the power to divert potentially millions of dollars from public investment with no transparency, all in an effort to enrich their political friends who are running ads for the NDP. In fact, Ron Hambley, president of the WCA, said that many of Manitoba's own homegrown construction companies are, quote, suspicious of the MGA and will, quote, simply stay away. Will the minister apologize for trying to drive Manitoba companies into the ground, and will he come clean about the political fees he is collecting from Manitoba workers?
The Honourable First Minister.
I love worker choice. I also love a woman's choice. That's choose what they want to do with their own bodies. And when we're talking about worker choice, every worker that I know chooses to make more money. And that's why we're fighting for you to get better wages. They want the money to go to the rich. We want the money to go to you. Yesterday, I was speaking to the Defence Minister, Minister David McGuinty. We're talking about all the amazing investments that are coming to CFB Shiloh, that are coming to 17 Wing, that are going to be coming to future facilities in Manitoba. And I asked him, so are these union jobs? Are they going to be paying the prevailing union wage? And he says, absolutely, 100%. So we're on board with the Manitoba Jobs Agreement. The federal government is using the same approach. Pierre Poilievre proposes to use the same approach. The only people who are in the pocket of the rich and powerful are the members for Borderland and the soon-to-be retired PC leader.
The honourable member for Borderland on a final supplementary question.
You know, the reality is, it's very important that this NDP government, this Premier hear this, because the reality is that nobody except this NDP government and their political friends in the building trades support the Manitoba Jobs Agreement. Everyone who actually builds schools, hospitals, roads and bridges says this deal will drive up costs, chase bidders away, and hurt non-union Manitoba workers who make up 88% of this sector. At a time when Manitoba needs to see economic growth, why is this government actively working against Manitoba's construction industry, in which 53,000 non-union Manitobans earn their paychecks?
The Honourable First Minister.
So this team right here is going to get those 53,000 Manitobans better wages, better pensions, and more protection on the job site because of the Manitoba Jobs Agreement. Sounds pretty good to me. Sounds pretty good to anyone who's ever had to earn their own way in life. However, Stephen Carter, that member's new campaign manager in the next election, said about Pierre Poilievre, and I quote, "They, the Conservative Party of Canada, were going to win the next election. Then unfortunately everything changed for them. Fortunately for the rest of us." End quote. So again, this is the one who's going to be designing the new signs to put up in Borderland, somebody who opposes Pierre Poilievre. How is that going to look on the back of the member's next election leaflet? There we go.
The Honourable Member for Morden Winkler.
Honourable Speaker, there are postgraduate work permit holders the Minister committed to fighting for, yet the Minister has remained silent on what specific actions are being taken. These individuals are already here and working, so why isn't the government acting? What concrete steps has the Minister taken to secure options and solutions for these workers, and when will they see results?
The Honourable Minister, Labour and Immigration.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I'm very honoured to be able to rise today to be able to speak on this issue, this very, very important issue. This past few days, I was in Ottawa, along with the head of the Business Council of Manitoba, along with the head of the Manitoba Chambers of Commerce, and with one voice, we were able to tell our counterparts at the Prime Minister's office, as well as with the Federal Immigration Minister, that here in Manitoba, we value our Manitoba workers, their immigration needs. We value the immigration needs of Manitoba employers, and also the immigration needs of our communities and municipalities outside of Winnipeg and rural areas and in the north. With one voice, we were able to say that we welcome.
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Member for Morden Winkler on a supplementary question.
Honourable Speaker, rather than providing clear and timely information, many feel they've been left with uncertainty. Instead of meeting with those affected, the Minister communicated through media. Will the Minister commit to meeting with them and clearly outlining what options are available to them today?
The Honourable Minister of Labour and Immigration.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The member is putting incorrect information on the record. Our ministers have been meeting with folks on February 20th, and members of my staff, because I wasn't here in Manitoba, were able to meet with folks again over the last few days. But at this point, I just need to remind the House that work permits is in the jurisdiction of the federal government. So Manitoba's role is to advocate for these workers, to advocate to extend the work permits, and we've been doing that in 2024. We did that in 2025, and we're doing it in 2026 to advocate for the extension of these work permits. This is a decision of the federal government.
The Honourable Member for Morden Winkler on a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I have spoken to local Manitoba MPs who have told me that they've reached out to the Minister's office with no reply. Will the Minister release the full decision-making framework and data behind these extensions so all the Manitobans can be confident the process is fair and not subject to selective or preferential treatment?
The Honourable Minister of Labour and Immigration.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The Premier and I were actually present with most of the Manitoba MPs yesterday in Ottawa together, alongside the Manitoba business community, all with one voice, all saying the same thing, that Manitoba welcomes newcomers, we welcome their contribution here in our province, we value them, and we are doing our very best to provide a path to permanent residency for those who contribute to Manitoba and for those who want to make Manitoba their forever home. Again, this is the jurisdiction of the federal government, whether or not they're going to agree to extend these work permits. The Conservatives on this side of the House have no leg to stand on. They have failed to process 2,178 permits.
Member's time has expired. The honourable member for Lac du Bonny.
Honourable Speaker, April 8th, the Minister of Education said that Mrs. Telfer had resigned. The Premier said on April 10th that the Minister of Education was misleading Manitobans and Mrs. Telfer was actually fired. Yesterday, Mrs. Telfer had sent out the facts that what the Premier had said was factually incorrect. Will the Minister of Education stand up today and apologize to the Manitobans for either Mrs. Telfer, herself, or the Premier misleading Manitobans?
The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And again, the safety of students here in Manitoba is of utmost importance, and it's certainly our top priority. That's why it's our government that took the leadership to bring in the registry, and that's why it's our government, myself, the Premier, our whole team, that took the leadership as a team in lockstep to move in a different direction. That's what real leadership looks like, Honourable Speaker. The MLA, the member for Lac du Bonny, was not a real leader when he is in government. He is not a real leader now. When he was the education minister, he didn't stand up for teachers. He cut their funding. He lied about it during the election, and they laughed at him during the election. What else has he done, Honourable Speaker? He made an offensive joke about Indigenous Manitobans and refused to apologize. He continues that racist behaviour in the chamber today. Will the member for Lac du Bonny stand up now and apologize?
Member's time has expired. Order, please. Get the clock stopped. I would ask the Honourable Minister to withdraw the part about he lied. The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Withdrawn.
The Honourable Member for Lac du Bonny.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And once again, unbecoming of a Minister of the Crown, Honourable Speaker. So the Minister of Education said,
Order.
and I quote, whether it's resign,
Order.
terminate, fire, part ways, call it what you will. It's semantics. It's a messy HR issue. End quote. Honourable Speaker, a press secretary suing this Minister of Families for racial discrimination is a messy HR issue, Honourable Speaker.
Order.
So I'll give the Education Minister another chance. Will she stand up today and
Order,
apologize?
please. Stop the clock. The Minister of Families needs to come to order. Honourable Member for Lac du Bonny.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Will the Education Minister, she has one more chance to stand up and apologize to Manitobans for misleading them, either her or the Premier. Will she apologize?
The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Manitobans know who they can trust when it comes to public education. That's why it's our government that brought in the teacher registry, and that's why it's our government that took the leadership and acted immediately when we need to go in a new direction. And why did we do that, Honourable Speaker? We did it for the kids. We did it for Manitoba families. Let's review their record. Let's review some of the headlines when the failed member from Lac du Bonny was the failed education minister. Okay, let's go. In the Free Press in September 2022, groups speak out against underfunding public education and a move to privatization. That's his record, Honourable Speaker. Here's another headline. Winnipeg School Division raises concerns about chronic underfunding in the new budget from 2023, his time in office, Honourable Speaker. Let's read more headlines.
Time has expired. The Honourable Member for Lac du Bonny on a final supplementary question.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. In fact, this education minister can't focus enough to answer this question, Honourable Speaker. Matter of fact, Honourable Speaker, this education minister signed a new contract with the former commissioner that extends from April 13th, which was this past Monday, to July 13th, 2026, which Ms. Telfer has said that was signed by the education minister and her. Honourable Speaker, is the Premier aware of this, or is this going to be another contract that the member or the Mrs. Telfer is going to be fired from? Honourable Speaker, I'll give the Premier a chance to apologize for misleading Manitobans on this file.
The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And when it comes to protecting kids here in Manitoba, Manitobans know who they can trust. Manitobans know they have a government that will take leadership and will act. But let's look at his time as the failed interim leader of the failed PC caucus, Honourable Speaker. As the interim leader, he failed to take action against the MLAs accused and his former colleagues of ethics violations. A member that continues to sit in this chamber today, the member for Red River North, who should be disgraced and ashamed of his behaviour. What else did he do as interim leader, Honourable Speaker? As interim leader, the member for Lactabani refused to address the MLA from Borderlands' Islamophobic remarks. He refused to remove Patrick Allard. What else did he do? We still haven't heard about the intimacy coach, Honourable Speaker. What happened to the intimacy coach?
Member's time has expired. The Honourable Member for Agassiz.
This education minister has a chance to be honest here today with Manitobans. Yesterday, she refused to back up her premier and denounce what the former registrar said. Instead, she tried to deflect and dodge like she continues here today. What my constituents want to know is, did this minister always think that protecting Manitoba children was a part-time job, or did she also only discover that about the position after Mrs. Telfer resigned?
The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The fact of the matter is that the Premier and I worked very closely on this file, and it's unfortunate the way that it's played out in the media, but what we did, Honourable Speaker, was in the best interest of Manitobans. That's right. And it was done to make sure that Manitoba kids are protected by a commissioner that lives and works in Manitoba. So sue me. That's okay? Right. What we do is in the interest of Manitobans. That's what we're always going to do. So the members opposite can get up and we can debate all day. It was a firing, it was a hiring, it was a termination. The fact of the matter is, kids today in Manitoba are safer under this NDP government than they ever were under this failed PC mess of a joke. That's right.
The Honourable Member for Agassiz on a supplementary question.
When our PC government brought in the framework for the registry, it was always envisioned as a full-time role. But this minister was okay with it being done part-time, why she was even okay with Mrs. Telfer continuing to work full-time in Saskatchewan at the start of her contract. So is Bobby Telfer right? Was her firing a political move by the Premier, or was her working conditions always a problem?
The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
I don't know what to tell you, Honourable Speaker. We are moving forward in the best interest of Manitoba children and Manitoba families and Manitoba schools. We're working hard to identify a brand new commissioner that's going to be working right here in Manitoba, and that's what Manitoba families expect. That's why we took the action that we did. And we've been hearing amazing feedback from the sector about the appointment of our interim commissioner, David Yeo. We thank him so much for taking on this very important role. And again, I want to speak directly to Manitobans and reassure them that despite the negative, dark insinuations coming from the other side of the House, that we remain committed to protecting kids. The Office of the Independent Commissioner remains open to receive your complaints, investigate your complaints, and make sure every student here in Manitoba is safe. Wow.
The Honourable Member for Agassiz on a final supplementary question.
The minister can't have it both ways. Either Bobby Telfer resigned or was fired, and there is no middle ground. The Premier said there was no ambiguity. If this minister has nothing to hide, will she commit to publicly releasing the emails between Mrs. Telfer and her deputy ministers? Public records either exist or they don't. If the minister and her premier have been honest with Manitobans, wouldn't they want to release the evidence?
The Honourable Minister of Education and Early Childhood Learning.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, Honourable Speaker. The teacher registry is a monumental step taken by our government to protect students here in Manitoba. That's what we should be talking about. But this is what Manitobans have come to expect from the opposition. They want to talk about, they want to make political attacks, they want to make worse, disgusting personal attacks. That's what they want to do. They think about themselves. They want to try to score their political points. What we're doing on this side of the House, Honourable Speaker, is dealing with a commissioner that needed to be dealt with. We're going to appoint a brand new commissioner, and we're going to do that because what we're focused on is serving Manitobans and protecting Manitoba kids, giving them the very best experience that they can have in school, not just so that they're safe, but also they have more than 800 new teachers to work with in the classroom.
The Honourable Member for McPhillips.
Honourable Speaker, Manitobans appreciate the potential of the Port of Churchill as a gateway to global markets and a driver of good jobs across the province. With new federal partnerships growing and growing international interest, the potential is finally being realized. Can the Premier please tell the House how our government is working with partners to unlock the full potential of Churchill?
The Honourable First Minister.
I want to thank our colleague from McPhillips for this amazing and timely question. When we see what's going on in the world right now, and then we look across Western Canada and all the economic growth that happens because of the resources in the West, we know that we need to hit international markets more quickly and with higher throughput. So we have Tidewater in Manitoba, which creates this generational opportunity. And though the war in Iran has punished everybody at the pump, it does mean that our potential export partners in Europe, in Asia, are even more desperate to buy our resources. So that's why I was in Ottawa yesterday to announce the cooperation agreement that ensures that when we build the Port of Churchill Project Plus, that there'll be one project, one review, people getting to work more quickly, respecting the environment, working with Indigenous nations, but making sure that we take our economy to the next level. Good news for Manitoba, good news for Canada, good times are here to stay.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Manitoba's economy is eroding under this NDP. Moody's credit rating agency has issued warnings to this government on Manitoba's economic growth. Deloitte has actually downloaded Manitoba's economic GDP projections for 2026 to just 1%. And just today, the Canadian Federation for Independent Business latest report release shows that business confidence is being eroded. In fact, under this NDP, the last 6 consecutive quarters, more businesses in Manitoba are closing than entering. That's fewer private sector jobs, fewer opportunities, and a shrinking economy. Why has this NDP created a high-tax, high-regulatory, anti-business climate that is driving Manitoba businesses out?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Honourable Speaker, the last Stats Canada report showed 11,000 jobs created in Manitoba last month. 10,000 in the private sector. 10,000 of those were in the private sector. We're doing the work of building the economy here in Manitoba. Also happy to say one of the lowest unemployment rates in the entire country. And of course, we continue to do the work of building up the economy. The Premier was just in Ottawa yesterday, moving Churchill forward. We know that's an incredible opportunity for our economy. And that's in addition to all the important work we're doing to build up our workers here in Manitoba. Our recent budget invested over $7 million new dollars to train apprentices to make sure that we can do the work of supporting businesses and supporting more economic growth right here in Manitoba.
The Honourable Member for Midland on a supplementary question.
Let's walk through this NDP's record since they came into office. 6 consecutive quarters of business exits versus entries, lowest economic growth in the entire country, highest education taxes across the entire country, the highest provincial income taxes in the West, second highest equalization transfers and handouts, and $40 billion of debt. That's this NDP's record since they came into office. While the PCs are committed to increasing the basic personal amount to $30,000 that will actually help Manitoba families who are struggling, the NDP is doing the opposite. At what point will this NDP admit they're driving the economy into the ground while more Manitobans are struggling?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Let's review the record, shall we, Honourable Speaker? In 1 year, we took a $2 billion deficit down by 40%. And then with our most recent budget, we posted the lowest deficit number in the entire country. Let's read the headlines from the credit rating agencies and financial institutions. DBRS headline, balance within reach. BMO headline, surplus is calling. Royal Bank headline, Manitoba budget 2026, path to balance maintained despite negative in-year surprise. National Bank budget on track to be balanced next year despite new affordability measures and higher capital spending. What are they saying, the experts? That we're getting the work done, we're investing in fixing healthcare, making life more affordable, while we bring forward a fiscally sustainable path. This government is going to do the work of supporting Manitobans while we move our economy forward.
The Honourable Member for Spruce Woods.
Honourable Speaker, small businesses in Brandon are sounding the alarm as retail theft continues to rise, with data from Brandon Police Service showing a 40% increase in shoplifting incidents. The Brandon Chamber of Commerce has made it clear that this is not just a business issue, it's a community issue, with local shop owners now facing growing financial losses, rising security costs, and concerns for staff safety. My question to the Minister is this: can small businesses in Brandon and across Westman expect support from this government, or will they continue to be left behind?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I appreciate the question. We were just in Brandon yesterday meeting with the Chamber of Commerce. They were very excited to hear about the work that we're doing. Our plan to get tough on crime and also tough on the causes of crime is working, and it's bringing down the crime rates across this province, including in the city of Brandon. We know across Manitoba the crime severity index is down by 4%. We know that youth crime is down by 10% across this province, and retail theft, an area that we have focused on as a government, we are seeing improvements. We're going to continue to work with the people of Brandon, with the Chamber of Commerce, the Mayor, and the Chief of Police, and we're going to continue to get results.
The Honourable Member for Fort Garry.
Manitobans are appalled at the level of street crime under this government, and especially appalled by youth crime. Angus Reid released a poll last week that revealed only 27% of Manitobans feel the Canoe government has done a good job on crime. Winnipeg Police Service says youth shoplifting up 50%, youth break-in enter up 30%, youth crime is up 29% over the past 5 years, and I'll table the report. These are crimes happening during the day when children should be in school but aren't. The Premier's known 15,000 children are chronically absent from school. Keeping those children in school not only protects them, but it also reduces youth crime. Why does this Premier continue to refuse to act?
The Honourable First Minister.
When we're talking about keeping you safe, we're talking about one of the most important responsibilities that we have in government, and that's why I'm proud of the fact that the Minister of Justice has overseen a dramatic drop in the homicide rate in Manitoba. It's at the lowest level that it's been in more than 2 decades. When it comes to recreation and education and keeping kids on a positive path, this is why we're building rinks. We're building ball diamonds. This is why we started the universal school food program, so that every kid can learn and not have to do so on an empty stomach. There's a lot of hypocrisy from the member. he makes himself wealthy off of defending the very criminals that he's trying to practice scaremongering about in the chamber here today. We kicked him out of our caucus because he makes money off of Peter Nygaard. On this side, we'll always condemn activities like that. We'll always condemn the Epstein files, and we'll focus on you making our community safer by investing in young people and investing in education.
Time has expired. Order, please. Order, please. I would ask all members to remain in their seats. I have a ruling. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker, on a matter of privilege.
On a matter of privilege, I will hear your matter of privilege as soon as I've done this point of order. Or this ruling, I'm sorry. Following oral questions and the raising of a matter of privilege on March 17, 2026, the Honourable First Minister rose on a point of order, alleging that in his response to the matter of privilege, the Honourable Official Opposition House Leader had reflected on the Chair in violation of the rules. The Honourable Official Opposition House Leader spoke to this point of order, and I took it under advisement. Reflecting on the Chair is a serious circumstance in any Parliament or Legislature. In the 4th edition of House of Commons Procedure and Practice, Jantz and LeBlanc state in citation 7.7 and 7.8 that 7.7, the actions of the Speaker and any other chair occupants may not be criticized in debate or by any means except by way of a substantive motion. 7.8, reflections on the character or actions of the Speaker, an allegation of bias, for example, could be taken by the House as breaches of privilege and punished accordingly. In the Hansard transcript from the exchange in question, the Honourable Opposition House Leader did mention that I had to call the government members to order on several occasions. In making such a comment, I would say the member came dangerously close to reflecting on the Chair, and I would urge the Honourable Official Opposition House Leader to take more care with his comments in the future. I'm ruling that the Honourable First Minister did not have a point of order in this instance. However, while I'm on this topic, I would note that there have been numerous occasions in recent weeks when members have criticized the actions of the Speaker or the Deputy Speaker. I am respectfully requesting that in the future, all members carefully consider their comments before they speak in the House to ensure that what they say cannot be taken as a reflection on the Chair, on the role of the Chair, on a ruling of the Chair, or on the performance of the individuals in the Chair. Thank you for your attention to this ruling. The Honourable Government House Leader on a matter of privilege.
Miigwech, Honourable Speaker, it's unfortunate that so quickly after I had recently gotten up a couple of weeks ago to point out really egregious, disgusting, bigoted behaviour from the member of for White, the Leader of the Opposition, I have to rise again to put on the official record for all Manitobans to read at some point in history that once again, a member of the PC caucus has shown his true colors and has created a toxic and unsafe workplace for members of our side of our caucus here. The member for Lac-Debonny, during QP, yelled across as he was heckling, as the Premier was speaking and answering his questions that were posed to him. The member for Lac du Bonny yelled over at the Premier, "You're drunk, you're drunk. I thought you quit drinking." I would have thought that after everything that happened and was proven to be true last week, that members opposite would have learned something, anything. But again, the member for Lac du Bonny has shown that members of the PC caucus can't control themselves. They're rearing their anti-Indigenous racism, which I will point out is not the first time that a member of that PC caucus has said something so degrading and disparaging to the Premier that in respect of him being an Indigenous man and leaning into those racist tropes about Indigenous men. Everybody in this chamber knows that the Premier lives a good life. And yet the member for Lac du Bonny is so incredibly disrespectful and so incredibly disgusting that he has to heckle something that is so uncalled for towards the Premier. That is a personal attack. It contributes to a toxic and unsafe working environment for the Premier, for the Deputy Premier, for every single member of our NDP caucus. Day and day, week after week, year after year, we have to put up with members opposite and their bigoted, racist, misogynistic comments that they level towards us on this side of the House. And it never stops. Yep. Even last week, when the leader of the opposition was shown to be putting false facts on the record, here we are again. Honourable Speaker, I ask the member for Lac du Bonny to get up in this House and apologize to the Premier. And I also refer this to a committee.
Before I recognize other members to speak to this matter of privilege, I would remind members to keep their comments germane to this matter of privilege. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Sorry, Honourable Speaker. I move, seconded by the Minister for Education, that this be referred to a committee of the House. Okay.
Okay. The Honourable Opposition House Leader.
This is just another tactic to try and distract from the failing NDP government. Transphobic.
Order, please.
Misogynistic. Bigot. Homophobic. Racist. Those are words that have been yelled across the House from the government side. And that's...
Order.
That's just to me, Honourable Speaker, and that is just from the government House Leader. These are words that mean a lot, are not accepted in other parts of this country as parliamentary language, but they continue to be slung across this House over and over and over again. The member does not have a standing order. The motion that was moved was not submitted in writing as it's supposed to be, and I await your decision, but this is not a matter of privilege.
So I thank members for their contributions to the speakers. I am going to take this matter of privilege under advisement, but while I'm taking it under advisement, I would ask all members, how many times have I cautioned people about screaming insults back and forth across the chamber? How many times have I cautioned members about I can't hear what's being said when people are screaming back and forth across the chamber? So I will take this matter of privilege under advisement because these matters are important. And the time for oral questions has also expired. Petitions. No petitions, grievances, orders of the day, government business, the Honourable Government House Leader.
Honourable Speaker, can you please call the start of Committee of Supply?
Order, please. So the House will now dissolve into Committee of Supply, and I would ask the Honourable Deputy Speaker to please take the chair.
Okay, will the Committee of Supply please come to order? This section of the Committee of Supply will now consider the estimates of the Department of Finance. Does the Honourable Minister have an opening statement? The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to deliver some opening remarks here at Committee of Supply on the 26-27 estimates for the Department of Finance. This is now my third opportunity to come before the committee and discuss our budget. Before I get into some of the key points, I think it's helpful to reflect on where we are today and where we've come from following the last election. For the benefit of committee members and for those watching at home, following the election, the government commissioned prominent accounting firm MNP to investigate the financial and budgetary decisions made near the end of the previous government's tenure, both in budget and with their first quarter report. MNP's report, the Post-Election Financial Accountability Review, concluded that previous government made a number of decisions which, and I quote, collectively represent high budgetary risk. As Manitobans know well, with the benefit of the audited Public Accounts 23-24, our government inherited a $2 billion deficit. It was the previous government's risky decisions and lack of accountability that left our government with the task of digging out of a big financial hole. For some additional context, I should add that in addition to inheriting a $2 billion deficit, we were left with some significant debt servicing costs. The fiscal framework we inherited saw 9.9 cents of every dollar going towards servicing the debt. As Minister of Finance, one of my core goals is to get that number down as we work to fulfill our election commitment to eliminate the deficit during our term of office. With that context in mind, let me say a few words about Budget 2026. This year, we're projecting a $500 million deficit, down 75% from the $2 billion deficit we inherited. And I'm very pleased to share that with this budget, the cost to service our debt has declined to 8.9 cents, and we're projecting that figure to decline further to 8.5 cents at the end of our fiscal forecast. Reducing these debt servicing costs are saving us over $200 million this year and roughly $400 million a year into the out years. In my view, this is significant progress, keeping us on track to balance the budget next year as promised. Let me also share for members of the committee that this budget is squarely focused on the priorities of Manitobans: good jobs, lower costs, and better health care. On good jobs, we're continuing to make considerable advancement on a generational opportunity with the Port of Churchill. Just yesterday, the Premier met with the Prime Minister for their second quarterly meeting on the Churchill Plus project, which followed the signing of a one project, one review collaboration agreement to streamline the regulatory process for major projects. To support this, Budget 2026 invests over $200 million for the Arctic Gateway Group to develop the Port of Churchill and the Hudson Bay Rail Line, as well as creating the Churchill Plus Catalyst Fund to support early-stage proposals for an energy corridor to the Bay. In addition, Budget 2026 invests heavily in key infrastructure with the largest capital plan in Manitoba's history. And we're making significant investments in training in the trades, so we have the workers to harness the opportunities before us, whether that's in new critical mineral projects, building new schools and hospitals, or continuing to build out key trade-enabling infrastructure. This budget is also focused on lowering costs for Manitobans. As we announced, effective July 1st, we're planning to take the provincial sales tax off of all food sold at the grocery store. We're continuing to make it easier to own a home by increasing our homeowner affordability tax credit to $1,700 a year. And we're making life easier for renters, increasing the renter's tax credit to $675. Finally, let me say a few words about healthcare, which is the largest single investment in this year's budget. After years of cuts and neglect under the previous government, we're working to deliver better health care. To date, we've hired 4,054 net new healthcare workers who are now working on the front lines. We're lowering ER wait times with new alternative level care beds and new specialized zones adjacent to ERs where patients can be seen by a specialist right away. We're building new ERs at the Victoria Hospital and the hospital in Eriksdale and a new cancer care headquarters. We're developing a new personal care homes in Bridgewater, Transcona, Lac du Bonnet, and Arborg. And we're investing $6.3 million to recruit more doctors to rural Manitoba. I could go on, but for the benefit of members, let me just end on this point. We inherited a $2 billion deficit. Today, it's down by 75%, and we're on track to balance the books next year. We're making investments in healthcare, education, public safety while supporting municipalities after years of PC cuts. And we're being open and transparent with Manitobans on how we do it. For the first time since 2017, Manitoba received a clean audit opinion from the Auditor General. That's something I'm very proud of, because another takeaway from MNP's post-election financial accountability review is that it was important for government to be transparent with Manitobans on the state of provincial finances. And for 7 years, the former PC government couldn't present a clean set of books. We're taking a different approach, and we're going to be transparent with Manitobans. So let me finally conclude on a well-known adage. Budgets are about choices, and this year, Manitoba chose a different approach than many other provinces. We're maintaining our commitment to fiscal balance. We have the lowest deficit to GDP in the country, and as many big banks and credit rating agencies have noted, this makes us unique. I'm proud that we can focus on what matters: good jobs, lower costs, and better health care, all while we continue to fulfill our commitment to eliminating the $2 billion deficit we inherited from the previous government. Thank you, and I look forward to the discussion this afternoon.
We thank the Minister for those comments. Does the official opposition critic have any opening remarks? The Honourable Member for Midland.
Today we're here not just to look at numbers on a page, but the financial direction of our province under this NDP government. The minister's financial estimates are built on a lot of assumptions and a lot of hope. And for the second year in a row, we're seeing rosy revenue projections that do not align with independent forecasts. Respected organizations like Deloitte and Moody's credit rating agencies are warning that this NDP's growth assumptions are too optimistic, so Manitobans have every right to question the credibility of this minister's budget. And when those projections miss the mark, as they have consistently done since this NDP came into office, the result is larger deficits, more borrowing, more debt, and higher taxes, all on the backs of Manitoba and Manitoba families. Year after year, we have seen this NDP government miss their own deficit projections, and not by a little, but by a significant margin. Last year, with a projected deficit of $800 million, this NDP government and minister exploded that deficit to $1.6 billion, and that was before they added an additional unbudgeted $200 million special warrant that did not come to the chambers for the scrutiny from the chamber members. This is the second time this minister has added an unbudgeted special warrant since he came into office. This reflects poor budget planning by this minister and this NDP government. The consequences that Manitoba's debt is continuing to climb is now over $2.3 billion this year, and the third largest government expenditure. This limits Manitoba's ability to respond to challenges, like we've seen this past year with the devastating wildfire season that Manitoba experienced. And it puts additional pressures on families and on services that Manitobans rely on. Manitoba's growth was the lowest in the country last year at just 1.1%. And Deloitte has now downgraded Manitoba's economic GDP growth to just 1% for 2026. So while other provinces are moving forward, Manitoba is falling further and further behind. And this leads back to the rosy projections, again, within this minister's budget. In fact, Moody's credit rating agency indicated that the minister's growth projections are not in line with reality. And when a credit rating agency issues a caution or a warning, that should be of significant concern to Manitoba and Manitobans. So despite increases in spending, there's no real meaningful tax relief. Instead, what we've seen since this NDP has come into government is a lot of ad hoc tax policies, a lot of temporary measures, short-term fixes, freezes, but yet no long-term, real, meaningful tax relief for Manitobans. These measures do not address the underlying cost pressures that Manitobans are seeing year after year. As we've seen with this minister's record, education taxes are the highest in the country and have skyrocketed to historic unprecedented levels as a result of direct decisions that this NDP government made. Income taxes have increased as this government has not increased the basic personal amount, and they ended indexation of income taxes, which is pushing more Manitobans into a higher income tax bracket. So any increase in wages that Manitobans might get, they will not feel because of inflation and being pushed into higher tax brackets. In fact, almost every single province has continued and maintained with indexation, except for Manitoba, while other provinces at the same time are actually increasing the basic personal amount. This minister and NDP government has decided to do neither. So with that being said, I look forward to getting into the details of those issues and the failures of this Manitoba budget and during this estimate process. Thank you very much.
We thank the critic from the official opposition for those remarks. Under Manitoba practice, debate on the minister's salary is the last item considered for a department in the Committee of Supply. Accordingly, we shall now defer consideration of line item 7.1 bracket A contained in Resolution 7.1. At this time, we invite ministerial and opposition staff to enter the chamber, and I would ask the minister and critic to please introduce their staff in attendance. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chair. I'd like to introduce two staff who are going to be here to support me. Mai Doma, Director of Ministerial Affairs, Paul Brescher, and Jeff McCulloch from Treasury Board Secretariat.
And the Honourable Member for Midland.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce our finance researcher, Levi Cottingham, who has joined us here today, along with my esteemed colleagues, the MLA for Steinbach and MLA for Red River North.
In accordance with the sub-rule 78 bracket 16, during the consideration of departmental estimates, questioning for each department shall proceed in a global manner with questions put on the resolutions once the official opposition critic indicates the questioning has concluded. The floor is now open for questions. The Honourable Member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just start off with a couple questions regarding office operations. So if the minister could please outline what political staff work out of the minister's office or within their purview, and please provide the name and position.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thanks so much, Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to answer the question, and I'll provide the breakdown of those staff as requested there momentarily. But I just want to take the opportunity to recognize the incredible people we do have supporting our office in finance. I want to start front of house with non-political staff, our incredible ATM, Pamela Wambach, Monica Ramirez, and Chris Tan, who are our correspondent secretaries. Just do an amazing job setting a tone in our office, welcoming people in, and just really manage things in an incredibly efficient way. We're really grateful to them for all the work that they do in support. Also think it's valuable to take this opportunity to thank all the incredible people supporting us throughout the Department of Finance, throughout Treasury Board Secretariat. Just an amazing, amazing group of people there doing work for all of us here in Manitoba. Specific to the question asked, I'll just outline the names and titles. So Paul Brescher, who we've met here today already, our DOMA. Secondly, Lindsay Salmonson, who's the Special Assistant in our office. Sarah Fair, who's the Executive Assistant supporting our team. And then two advisors, Rory Henry, who's the advisor on energy, and then Tim Johnson, who's my advisor on Treasury Board.
The honourable member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you, and I thank the minister for his response, and also want to say thank you to his staff who are very responsive when I have constituency-related questions that come to his department as well. So thank you to Paul and the team for being available to me personally so I can get some answers for my constituents as well. So thank you for the work that you do. Has the minister hired any external consultants or advisors? And if so, please provide their names and salaries, wages, and or contract amounts.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Appreciate the question. So there are no external consultants or advisors external to our office who are contracting for support at this point.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Thank you. In follow-up to the minister's last question or last answer, have there been any external consultants or advisors hired to support the minister that is not within the finance department, but is perhaps hired through a different department, but still might advise the minister on various issues, or deputy minister?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. And apologies for the delay there. I just wanted to make sure we brought accurate information. So there's an individual who's been contracted to the deputy or in finance supporting us on energy and has been acting as an advisor in regards especially to the 600 megawatts of new Indigenous wind that's coming online. His name's Chris Henderson, and he works with a company called Indigenous Clean Energy. So he's been supporting us for the last, I think, just under a year or so as we've worked through that wind project.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Okay, thank you. How much has the Minister's office expensed for travel in the past year?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Chair, we've got a tough line of sight here, so figure it out for a while. To the question, so happy to share that all of our office expenses are posted online for full transparency. They can be found on the reports and expenses site in the Department of Finance, and they are all up to date. And I can share that beyond that, just simply put, the extent of our travel has been limited to FPTs. And our investors tour that we took last year, which was to, of course, support meeting with credit rating agencies and investors so we can keep doing the good work of building those relationships and making sure that we work together to meet Manitoba's cash requirements and to keep our costs as low as possible in the process. So looking forward to making that trip again soon.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you. Can the minister please identify the projected spend on advertising from his department?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Honourable Speaker, I don't want to delay things any further. We're still getting that information. I commit to providing that in this discussion or during this this committee hearing. So let's just move on maybe to the next question. We'll make sure we get that within today's time frame.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate the minister could get that information. So just in the spirit of time, if while he's gathering that information, if he could also provide a breakdown as to where those advertising dollars are going, a breakdown how much advertising dollars are going to advertise the budget, how many of those advertising dollars are going to advertise a Manitoba Hydro campaign or any other advertising campaigns.
Sorry, the Honourable Member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you. If the minister could break down the total average of savings per Manitoban from their recent PST cut at the grocery store and confirm for the record the total cost to Manitoba's books. So I'm looking for the average savings per Manitoban as a result of this PST cut.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. Appreciate the question and appreciate the interest in the work we're doing to make life more affordable by reducing the cost of food for families. We know that when it comes to affordability, food costs are the biggest driver of affordability challenges that families are facing, and that's why we wanted to make sure we acted on that with this measure. Maybe before I share the details that were requested, I want to talk a bit more about the work we're doing on food broadly. Number one, the member will of course know about the work we did to freeze the price of a 1 litre jug of milk. I think we've also taken really important steps forward with getting rid of some covenants that were preventing more grocery competition in our communities. I hope the member can agree to the idea that more competition is a good thing that will help us to ultimately see costs come down in grocery stores across Manitoba thanks to that action. The other thing that I think is important to talk about here when it comes to food costs, I'm really proud of the work that we're doing when it comes to legislation on surveillance pricing to ensure that Manitobans are protected against the use of their personal data to charge them more when they go to do their shopping online. We've seen in other jurisdictions the growing use of this type of exploitation of personal data for the purpose of charging one consumer more than another consumer who are perhaps buying the same thing at the same point in time. And that's a concern to see the growing use of data to be weaponized against consumers and ultimately used to raise their costs. So that's something we're We're proud to be on the cutting edge there and to have brought forward that legislation. And I think ultimately that's going to put us really ahead of other jurisdictions across North America when it comes to protecting our citizens against that type of practice. To the fourth item I'll speak to in terms of our work of reducing the cost for food for Manitobans, the members asking about our initiative to take the PST off of all groceries at grocery stores. And I think that's something we can all celebrate. We know that, again, with the rising cost of food, governments maybe can't do everything, but where we can act and pull levers, we should. And I think this action to eliminate the PST off of all food and grocery stores is, again, one of those important actions we're taking. The overall cost in a full fiscal year, annualized, is $32 million in a year. We're expecting the overall cost this year to be $24 million, and that's assuming that it gets put in place on July 1st. Now, in order for Manitobans to benefit from that on July 1st, we also need the members opposite, of course, to support that. So that's assuming that they want to help Manitobans reduce their grocery costs, that would come into effect on July 1st, making this year's total cost an estimated $24 million. In terms of the total savings, we talked a bit about this at budget time, but we're estimating the savings for a family of four to be around $100 a year. And again, that's in addition to the many other important initiatives that we've undertaken and that I outlined here today that are focused on reducing costs for Manitobans.
The honourable member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. So the minister's savings is $8 a month and less than $2 in a given week. That's how much he's saving with this so-called celebrated and affordability measure by this minister, compared to our PC plan and PC team plan of saving Manitoba families $3,500 within a given year for a dual income household. Manitobans would have $3,500 more in their pockets, not less than $100 per year in their pockets. So if you're comparing apples to apples, Manitobans would certainly be better off under our plan to increase the basic personal exemption to $30,000. This goes back to my opening comments where the minister has not brought forward any real, meaningful, long-term tax relief at a time when 50% of Manitobans are reporting that they are within $200 of insolvency. So when it comes to this minister's budget and advertising of their PST reduction for grocery stores, how much has the minister budgeted to advertise the PST cut for grocery items?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
So much, Chair. Appreciate the question, and maybe before I get to the answer specifically for that was being requested here, just talking broadly about affordability. The member likes to suggest that our government isn't acting, but of course we know that that's fiction, and I'm happy to just talk a bit about the good work that we're doing to lower costs and the work that we've done since coming into government. Of course, you'll know that one of the first things that happened when we got in was we offered Manitobans a one-year fuel tax holiday. That was followed, of course, by a permanent cut to the gas tax going forward, which continues to benefit Manitobans right now at a time of elevated energy costs. We also know that we brought in an increase to the basic personal exemption, changes to brackets that are allowing more of your money as a Manitoban to be taxed at a lower level. So those personal income tax changes are providing huge benefits to Manitobans that we supported as a new government and brought forward, and now Manitobans are benefiting from those reductions. We also, of course, after years of massive underinvestment in education, are not only investing adequately in ensuring that school divisions have funding that's above the rate of inflation, finally after years of cuts, but while we're ensuring that education is funded adequately, we're also bringing forward important reductions to school tax costs for Manitobans in the form of an education and property tax rebate, which we call the homeowner affordability tax credit. Of course, that started with $1,500 off your education property tax bill, went up to $1,600 at the last tax season, and next year Manitobans can look forward to a $1,700 reduction in their overall tax costs for education property taxes. And again, this is something that we talk about a lot in this House. The member in her community, 9 out of 10 people are better off or have more money in their pockets as a result of that measure. So that's something I continue to be confused about how she's communicating when she goes back to her riding and talks to residents, and I'm not sure how she squares that, but the reality is that 9 out of 10 people in her community are better off as a result of that change. And that's something I think we can be proud of, that we're reducing those costs for Manitobans in all corners of the province. In addition to that, of course, reducing costs for renters through our increases to the renter's tax credit that the members opposite cut on those who need the most help. Often, again, people who are seniors, people on fixed incomes, for some reason they saw fit to raise costs on those folks. And so proud that our last budget continued to do the work of meeting our commitment to raise that renter's tax credit back to the value it was before the PCs raised those taxes on Manitobans. And then, of course, in addition to that, we're doing all this other great work in reducing the cost for food for Manitobans. The members sort of scoff at the amount of money that we said that we're going to help put in people's pockets. I guess to some extent it depends on how many rotisserie chickens their family is eating, along with other fresh foods. But what we can say is the average family is going to save money. And I know, again, for the members opposite, they seem to think that those dollars are insignificant. On this side of the House, we recognize the reality of the challenges families are facing. And I said at the beginning of my last answer about food affordability, I'll say it again, we can't do everything, but we can pull the levers where we can. And this is one area where we know we can help to make a difference, again, among many other areas. The best part, Chair, of this is that not only are we doing this and bringing these savings to Manitobans, we're doing it in a way that ensures we not only bring in affordability benefits, but that while we continue our fiscally sustainable path, something that I'm really proud of. We continue to be on track to deliver on our balanced budget commitment to Manitobans next fiscal year. And again, it's very different than the kind of record that the members opposite left with us. They left Manitobans with a $2 billion deficit hole. And the proposal that was again raised here today, which is to raise the basic personal exemption to $30,000, we know that initially they hadn't even costed this. We now know that this proposal is about $1 billion revenue leak for the province, should it come in. And again, we know that ultimately the impacts of that mean more closures of hospitals, more healthcare workers getting fired, more underfunding for education. They bring this forward, clearly they hadn't even costed it, so they hadn't done that piece of work. But it is really concerning to hear them bring forward a proposal that would A, result in credit downgrades, or B, result in more cuts to healthcare and education and the many things that they did when they were in government. So Manitobans can see why they've got a lot of reason to be worried about the return of the PCs to government at some distant point in the future.
The honourable member for Midland.
So, quite frankly, this minister has no leg to stand on when it comes to the education property tax file, considering we know that 55% of Winnipeg properties are worse off under this plan. Their increase to $1,700 doesn't start until next year, which quite frankly wouldn't even cover the costs of school division hikes and school tax hikes for this year, let alone next year when a general assessment takes effect and property values continue to rise. I can certainly say for my constituents, they would rather not see an education property tax at all, and we're very much in favorable of the PC government's plan to eliminate education taxes off of properties altogether. And if the PCs were still in power, that amount would be a 75% rebate, going up to 100% rebate, which would put Manitoba homeowners, Manitoba families in a much better position than the poorly planned, sloppy rollout of the homeowner affordability credit that this minister brought forward last year. But my question was specific to how much advertising dollars are going towards the PST on groceries tax cut.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And again, when we're talking about education, it seems almost comical to hear the members opposite talk about their record, and it's quite a revisionist history we hear when we listen to them talk about their approach to education during their time in government. We know if you talk to anyone who's leading in a leadership position within a school division, they'll tell you those are very difficult years. And I know that the members opposite know that. I know that when they have conversations with school division leadership, they would hear this message loud and clear. And so we know that school divisions are happy to finally be getting funded at rates that are above the rate of inflation. That's long overdue. And of course, while we fund school divisions at the rate of inflation and beyond, we're also bringing in big savings with these education and property tax rebates that are helping Manitobans. And again, like the member opposite, in her community, 9 out of 10 people are better off as a function of that. So I don't know how she squares that when she talks to residents in her community, but I think that's something that I'd love to hear from residents of her community about what they think about her advocating for higher costs for her residents. To the question that was asked, the members opposite, it's fun to chat away in here, but it's tough to kind of keep focus on the question. So it would be good if we could just keep things respectful. The answer to the question that was asked is the global amount spent last year on advertising was $1.6 million. We're expecting that this year that the amount spent on advertising will be relatively similar to that amount. Of that amount, or within that amount, the expenses as it relates to advertising on budget, which is where you would have seen some advertising around the PST reductions on groceries, would be included within that number. So again, the overall number is expected to be 1.6 million. And specific to the question that was asked, those expenses would be part of the expenses that were brought forward as part of budget advertisements. So 1.6 million is the expected number for the upcoming year.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Can the minister please confirm how much of that $1.6 million in the global advertising budget is going towards advertising the PST cut at grocery stores?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Chair. So the total amount spent this year for budget-related advertising specifically, but this includes billboards, all the printing that we do, all those nice-looking books, really the all costs pertaining to budget advertising were $174,000. And so, but again, that reflects the totality of our expenses as it relates to budget, which also include, of course, advertising pertaining to PST reductions and otherwise.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Okay, thank you. Just shifting gears a little bit here. Can the minister please walk us through how his department determines Manitoba's economic forecasts and the model that they use for revenue projections?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. Before I offer the answer, I just want to talk about something that was said in the opening statement by the member that I think needs to be the record needs to be set straight. Something I've heard them repeat before, but that it relates to the economic results for Manitoba for 2024. The number that they presented was wrong, and just to be clear, this comes from economic accounts from Stats Canada. Manitoba had 1.7% growth in that year, and that was compared to Ontario that had 1.6 or BC that had 1.1. So the repeating line that we were last, just to be clear, Manitoba performed at 1.7 that year, and that's coming right from Stats Canada. Moving on, happy to provide the information that was requested in relation to how we do our economic forecasting. I can share that, of course, there's perhaps different aspects to this, and specific to how we calculate real GDP and use that in our forecasting. We use 7 private sector forecasts. That we partner with 7 private sector agencies that provide us with those forecasts, plus the Manitoba Bureau of Statistics also does their own analysis that supports that. So again, that's to help support calculating real GDP. And I think, again, we're taking a responsible approach when it comes to identifying economic forecasts and ensuring that we budget accordingly. Just to speak to how this is distinct from what we've seen from the members opposite, they'll know that, again, we did this report with MNP that found some pretty concerning decision-making from the members opposite before they left government. And we know that that MNP report identified that they had taken a number of very risky, concerning decisions that led to that $2 billion deficit number. I think it's important that we remind Manitobans of what occurred there. And what that report outlined was that not only did they use, we'll call them rosy economic assumptions, but they also used, again, we'll call them rosy assumptions when it comes to Manitoba Hydro's forecast. That year, they had forecasted an estimated net income for Hydro above $500 million, which is, again, something that is wildly irresponsible. We know that that is not a realistic type of forecast, and that's saying nothing about the fact that when they reported out to Manitobans their Q1 result before an election, only a couple months before an election, at a point by which they would have been very clear on Hydro's destination when it came to their net income, they chose not to share that. And that was, of course, a real lack of transparency on their part. Manitobans should have gained a line of sight on the fact that they were going to see ultimately hundreds of millions of dollars of negative variance with Hydro's net income. They would have known that before that Q1 report. They chose not to share that and ultimately went into an election with Manitobans having a conception of our fiscal position that was hundreds of millions of dollars better than ultimately where we were in reality. So that's a concern. And of course, that report also outlined how there were a number of major expense decisions that were made after the budget was released that they didn't account for in that Q1 report. So that is the kind of thing that Manitobans need to be really worried about, that kind of an approach to budgeting, that type of lack of transparency. And I think ultimately when I think about what they've brought forward here with their proposal, again, there's a lack of transparency with Manitobans about what it would mean to give $1 billion to the wealthiest in Manitoba, and the impacts of that on our ultimately on our ability to continue to operate as a province and provide services. It's interesting to hear them bring this forward without any accounting for what the impacts would be. But again, we can share it's going to be A, credit rating downgrades, or B, again, more massive cuts to healthcare, as we saw under the PCs during their time in government. So that's an irresponsible approach to fiscal management. That's what we know we can expect when the Conservatives are in government. That's what we saw when they left government. They left us with a big mess to clean up. MNP, an independent accounting firm, confirmed that that was the approach, and that's ultimately was their decisions that led to that $2 billion hole. We're climbing out of it. Our most recent budget is a 75% reduction relative to that deficit number that they left us. So again, we're proud to be doing the work, showing a fiscally sustainable path forward while we make life more affordable. And we're going to keep working with to bring forward great quality economic forecasting in partnership with these economic agencies.
The honourable member for Midland.
From the Minister's own department and economic report in December of 2025, the economic GDP growth was 1.1%. So is the minister admitting that his own projection was 1.7%, and then under his failing government, it was downgraded to just 1.1%? Is that what he is admitting, that his own projection was 1.7% and then ended up being only 1.1% for economic GDP growth?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Apologies for the delay there, and if I didn't get the time periods correct, I'll let the member clarify. So I just do want to reconfirm economic accounts for 2024 showed Manitoba landed at a 1.7% growth, which is not the lowest in Canada. We were above Ontario and BC. And then just pertaining to the forecasting numbers that were identified by the member, I can say that December 2025 Q2 report, we were projecting 1.1% growth. And then at budget, which is our Q3 report for 2025, we had revised that upwards to 1.6%.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
So the minister has projected a 1.7% real GDP growth for this coming year, yet Deloitte has recently come out and downgraded that to be 1% for real GDP growth for 2026. So seeing as how the past couple of years under this NDP government, their projected real GDP growth has not been met with reality in the end of our economic GDP growth. So does the minister stand by his projection, or does he agree with Deloitte's projection that Manitoba will be downgraded to a 1% GDP growth for this year?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
We'll wait a moment for the critic.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
So much, Chair. So in regards to the question, one thing I can share is, well, I already shared earlier, we work with 7 private sector forecasters who help us to determine economic forecasts looking forward. The consensus forecast in January was 1.3% growth, and that consensus forecast remained at 1.3 altogether with those 7 forecasters at the time of budget. So I'm sure the member can appreciate that at a certain point we have to lock in, and Deloitte is the only one of those 7 that had adjusted their forecast downward from January to March. Overall, that consensus forecast remains at 1.3. So again, 1 of 7 revised downward, the rest held or went up. And so it's important when we look at data, we look at all the data, and together it holds at that 1.3% level. You know, since we're talking about data and so forth, I also want to use this opportunity to flag how happy we were to see the latest StatsCan data that said that we've added 10,000 jobs last month. That's, I think, a good sign about the work that we're doing in helping to grow opportunities and create jobs here in Manitoba. And it's building on the 30,000 that we'd already talked about in this House a lot. And so we're seeing a lot of great momentum when it comes to creating opportunities for Manitobans to move ahead, creating a lot of more growth opportunities for folks in every corner of Manitoba. Proud of that work. And again, back to the forecasting question, happy to answer any other further questions as it relates to this.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you. So Moody's credit rating agency has issued a cautionary note to this NDP government regarding its budget projections coupled with slow economic growth. I would ask the minister if he could clearly state for the record if any credit rating agencies, whether it be Moody's, S&P, or DBRS, have issued any other cautions, warnings, or negative outlooks regarding Manitoba's fiscal position.
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Maybe it gives me a chance just to talk about the important work that we're doing as it relates to building good relationships with credit rating agencies. I'm proud of the fact that we've done two investors tours since we've come into office. We're going to be doing our 3rd within the next month. And those visits to our investors and with credit rating agencies are incredibly important. It gives us a chance to dig into our budget, to dig into our forecasts and our thinking, and gives them a chance, frankly, to really pressure test our budget and our thinking. And we welcome that. We welcome that opportunity to have those conversations, to be accountable to the numbers that we print. To date, I think we've shown incredible progress on reducing that deficit that was left with Manitobans. I think, again, one of the biggest signs of our progress is that reduction in our debt servicing costs. That's going to bring a lot of benefits to Manitobans. As it relates to the question and comments from credit rating agencies, the member would know when credit rating agencies do reports, they make them public. And so those will be visible for all the world to see when they come in. But again, I want to use this as an opportunity to just highlight the headlines from the credit rating agencies, or at least some of them here. I'll just speak to DBRS's balance within reach. We're seeing some great quotes here from the 3 credit rating agencies. Again, I'll read one. For Moody's, the improved forecasted fiscal plan lowers Manitoba's need to borrow for operations, with debt primarily needed to fund capital projects for the province and for government business enterprises. We are, I think, showing with our the incredibly modest deficit that we brought in this year, which is only 0.5% of GDP, the lowest in Canada, that we're very serious when it comes to good fiscal management. I think the credit rating agencies can see that, along with financial institutions and investors, and we're serving Manitoba well. And with all that work, what does this translate into? more preferential or lower costs of borrowing that we can put to good work, put to good use in making further investments in healthcare and affordability and the many areas that were cut for many years under the members opposite. So that link between fiscal accountability and ensuring we do this important work of working closely with credit rating agencies to understand the seriousness of our commitment to balanced budget, the seriousness of our focus on sustainability. It's something that the average person doesn't really get a chance to hear about or to think about, and it makes me proud that we're doing the work of, again, helping to lower those borrowing costs, because we know those dollars need to be put to good work in investing in healthcare and in education in many areas that saw reductions over the 7.5 years that the PCs were in government. I will leave it there.
The honourable member for Midland.
Thank you, Chair. So it's also important that when a credit rating agency issues a cautionary warning or a cautionary note or a warning, that we also, as a province, look at those red flags from within the report. And from Moody's credit rating agencies, the key areas of concern from their report included inconsistent projections that do not align with the slow growth economic forecast that challenges the credibility of this government's fiscal plan, risks in the budget's reliance on a major financial turnaround for Manitoba Hydro, which has suffered losses in recent years, red flags regarding the government's ability to balance the budget next year, and trade uncertainty and U.S. tariffs that could continue to impact Manitoba's revenue and economic outlook. When a credit rating agency issues red flags regarding a government's fiscal plan, that puts Manitoba's fiscal position in significant jeopardy within its credibility. So can the minister please tell us, and for the record, when he and his department were made aware of Moody's credit rating warning or cautionary note and concerns with the Manitoba budget?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it, and appreciate the opportunity to respond to the question. So very important to flag that while the member is trying to characterize it otherwise, it's not a rating decision, just comments within the document that had been put out. And when did we learn about that? When all other people around the world were able to access that document when it was made public. We are eager. We're going to be meeting with Moody's at the end of the month as part of that tour, and we're looking forward to meeting with them and answering any questions they have, because that's how we operate. There's going to be full transparency, and we're eager to dig into things with them. As it relates to just some of the characterization here around hydro, it is important to speak clearly on the record about how our government has approached Manitoba Hydro and our budgeting as it relates to them. This year's net income forecast is $140 million. A very modest net income position. For what it's worth for the member, I'll outline that net income forecast is based on a number of factors, but it's based off realistic projections or understandings of where our current reservoirs are at. And from there, we build a forecast based on some weather forecasting and historic water levels. But it is a very realistic budget number for this year and very modest, especially when you compare that $140 million net income figure to the over $500 million net income figure that the PCs had used in their last year in government. So supporting that, and just I think speaking further to the work we're doing to ensure hydro is fiscally healthy, and I think speaking to really why what the member is saying is not accurate, where they're suggesting that we're somehow overly reliant on some rosy projections at hydro. Again, not only are we starting from a very modest net income forecast, but also we're helping to support hydro's financial health through changes we made. We eliminated the capital tax, which keeps a lot more money in hydro's coffers, and we changed the debt guarantee fee. We reduced that last year, and we reduced it again this year. And the net impact of that is an additional $220 million a year is staying in hydro's coffers. And so when you account for that, along with this incredibly modest net income position that we've put forward, which is itself accounting for our lower water position with our reservoirs, I hope the member can see, and I'm doing my best to really help them understand here, that our approach to hydro is very modest, is a very modest approach when it comes to our forecasting. And so we're eager to talk more about this when we get out west to talk with the credit rating agencies, talk more about how we came to this forecast, and speaking to how our budget is credible and any other details that folks are going to want to dig into. So with that, I'll pass it back to the member.
The honourable member for Midland.
Yeah, so these cautions came directly from Moody's credit rating agency. These are red flags that one of our 3 credit rating agencies has raised as a result of Manitoba's fiscal position and Manitoba's budget. They didn't come from me. This is coming from a credit rating agency. And although the minister is claiming that this is not going to result in a downgrade, it is still a red flag from a credit rating agency, and that needs to be taken seriously. So does the minister disagree with Moody's assumptions or assessment of Manitoba's fiscal position?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chair. So again, I know the member on the record is trying to overstate what Moody's has said. It was not a rating decision. In fact, we've been preserved at AA stable, and we're very proud of that. And I think, in terms of her question about whether we disagree with Moody's assessment, I took, I spoke at length about how hydro's forecast has been developed this year. I spoke to why it's credible, why that is a very modest net income position, and why we're helping to keep hydro in a good fiscal position. So that's just one of many things that we're eager to connect with Moody's over and to discuss, to talk about the good work that we've done in preparing this budget.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So with that being said, has Moody's, S&P, or DBRS, or any other credit agency, advised the province to slow its borrowing, slow its spending, or improve its revenue realism?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate that. So just in response to the question, what did we hear from credit rating agencies? I'll let the reports speak for themselves. I think they provide a lot of detail that the member can review. But I'd say overall, the reaction to our budget and our forecasts were very positive. And we see that by the virtue of the fact that our credit ratings have been preserved post-budget. We're looking forward to that Moody's report later in the summer. And again, we're looking forward to having that conversation with them near the end of the month. I do want to speak to the fact, though, that it's very impressive, I think, by any measure, that through a period where we faced record wildfires, a horrible wildfire season that affected over 30,000 Manitobans and ultimately led to over $350 million in expenditures to support those Manitobans. In addition to it being one of the worst drought years since 1940-41, where hydro had a massive revenue variance tied directly to that natural event, that even in the context of those significant economic impacts from those events that are, again, completely outside of our government's control, we've still been able to show to those credit rating agencies that we have a plan that they can have confidence in. And so even in the context of all these headwinds, it's clear that credit rating agencies continue to have confidence in the plan that we put forward, even in face of those massive headwinds that we faced as a province last year. And so I think that speaks to the good work that's been done in developing a path forward. And of course, we are seeing in some other provinces across Canada some downgrades happening. And of course, those are in provinces that perhaps haven't faced that same level of in-year impact. So even in the face of really historic wildfires and droughts, our government is doing the important work of ensuring that we're putting forward a fiscally sustainable plan that's credible with credit rating agencies. And we can see that by virtue of the fact that they continue to preserve our good ratings, even within a challenging period. I think that speaks to the quality of the work that is being put forward. I think it speaks to the quality of the forecasting and leadership that our government is bringing when it comes to managing the fiscal purse here in Manitoba.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So speaking of our credit rating, what specific steps or requirements have the credit rating agencies demanded of the Manitoba government to ensure that our credit rating does not get downgraded?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. So in response to the question, I can share that these things are not kept secret. The member might know that credit rating agencies make their pronouncements very public. And I can speak to, just to answer the question, something that Moody's shared in one of their reports last August. I'll just read this out. Factors that could both lead to an upgrade and factors that could lead to a downgrade. But for the member's benefit, I'll read all of this. Factors that could lead to an upgrade, according to Moody's, rating could be upgraded if a strong fiscal and economic recovery supports a faster rise in revenue than we currently anticipate, allows for a material reduction in the debt burden. A significant increase in cash and investments, including long-term liquidity sources, would also contribute to upward pressure on the rating. On the flip side, the rating could be downgraded if an economic slowdown and a more prolonged period of trade uncertainty resulted in meaningful revenue declines or rising spending, contributing to larger or longer-lasting deficits than we currently project. A material increase in the debt burden, including a rise in the indebtedness of Crown corporations such as Hydro, would also result in downward rating pressure. So again, this is not secret. This is publicly available, something that was put out into the world last August. And of course, we look forward to continued work in collaboration with those credit rating agencies to make sure that they can learn more about the good work we're doing to ensure a fiscally sustainable path forward.
The honourable member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So with those requirements, Manitoba under this NDP government is in a very significant fiscal position for a credit rating downgrade, as Manitoba Hydro's debt has now exploded to $27 billion and is slowly closing in on their $29 billion debt wall. At the same time, under this NDP government, they have posted back-to-back deficits, missing their quarterly deficit projections by not just a little bit, but by a significant margin. As we saw last year, they projected an $800 million deficit, and then that became $1.6 billion. That didn't even include a $200 million unbudgeted special warrant. So I asked the minister that if Manitoba were to receive a credit rating downgrade, what would be the estimated cost to Manitoba taxpayers? And how is the estimated additional interest that Manitoba would have to pay to credit rating agencies?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. I think, just important to speak to some of the comments that were made there. First year, our first fiscal result, as I spoke about earlier in the House today, we reduced that $2 billion deficit that was left to Manitobans by 40%. So that was a huge reduction and showed progress relative to what they had left us in terms of a fiscal hole to climb out of. Last year, the fiscal result, the member's referencing, what I can share is that it's building on my comments about hydro and the wildfire impacts. Absent those impacts, we were on target. And so, as a government, again, it's tough to control for historic wildfire seasons or the worst drought since 1941, but those events will have an impact on any government's ability to budget accordingly. And so, we know that ultimately every year, the reality is at Manitoba Hydro, you can have significant variability in terms of your forecasting around water. Hydrology can change in year. The difference is our government will actually tell Manitobans when things change relative to what we saw from the members opposite, which was very different when they had what was clearly a massive variance from their net income projection of over $500 million, which they didn't share with Manitobans. So again, when it comes to the path forward, we continue to manage, I think, overall in a very fiscally responsible way. The member spoke a bit about hydro. I do have to speak a bit about, the work that we're doing there. I can say I think what we've brought forward very quickly in short order, and just effectively 2 years of government, is a response to the failure on the members opposite to ensure that Manitobans would have access to affordable, reliable energy when they needed it. Honestly, Chair, they really put us in a precarious spot. Fortunately, again, within a year, we had brought in our affordable energy plan that showed the path writ large moving forward as to how we were going to keep energy affordable and ensure that Manitobans had access to the power they needed. Most recently, the IRP that was brought forward by Hydro all Manitobans have the ability to look at that document. That IRP shows the path forward, which, yes, does involve significant investments in our energy infrastructure. And frankly, Chair, those investments are long overdue. And we're doing that because we know that's incredibly important, not only for reliability and affordability reasons, but also because we know that's essential to economic growth here in Manitoba. It's kind of strange to hear the member opposite speak negatively about the fact that we're investing in Manitoba Hydro after years of their failure to take any action to move us forward in meeting our capacity requirements, something that frankly was going to have a chokehold on our ability to grow our economy here in Manitoba. You can't grow your economy unless you have energy to support that growth. And for 7.5 years, we didn't take a single step forward in that regard. I mean, it's irresponsible. I don't even know what type of words I would use to characterize the decisions or the lack of decisions that we saw. But all I can say is that it was harmful. It was harmful to the prospects of our economic future and put us in a very difficult position. So I think we've done really important work when it comes to finding that path forward for hydro, not only involving, I think, significant investments in assets like Bipole that are going to help to make sure that we can bring that energy reliably from northern Manitoba down to southern Manitoba, but also, again, that we expand the amount of energy that we have available to make sure that we can meet our energy needs going forward. And while we're doing that, we're going to make sure that hydro rates remain affordable. In fact, the rate path that has been put forward by Hydro is a rate path that shows lower rate growth than what Manitobans experience under the members opposite. And the truly incredible thing about that, Chair, is that our rate path is lower while we're making the investments that we need to ensure we have the energy capacity we require to power our homes and businesses. While for the members opposite, the rate hikes were higher and Manitobans didn't get a single thing for it. I think it's important that we let that sink in, that for years the members opposite, their only focus when it came to hydro was jacking up hydro rates on Manitobans without giving us anything or showing anything for those investments or that they were going to do anything with those revenues. That's their record. Our record, again, responsible fiscal management. We're going to keep doing that good work. We know that's important for the future of the province.
The honourable member for Midland.
Yeah, only an NDP minister would claim that a $373 million surplus left by a former government would put them in a precarious position. But now the minister is going into almost his third year in office, and it's time for him to start taking responsibility for his spending and his back-to-back deficits that have occurred under his watch. So can the minister state for the record, is he confident that Manitoba will not receive a credit rating downgrade by any of the credit rating agencies?
The honourable member, or the honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much. What I'm confident in is that we've done a lot of really good work that led to a budget number that is, again, the lowest deficit by GDP in the country, 0.5% of our GDP. And so, that didn't happen by accident. That happened because our team did a lot of really hard work, focused work, to first of all develop a budget that was focused and targeted on those priorities that we know Manitobans have for us right now and have been clear about, that we're hearing on doorsteps and that we're hearing in community. And ultimately, that's what Manitobans can expect, is a very responsible approach. So I can state that with confidence that we did an incredible amount of work. First of all, to determine a cost structure going forward. It wasn't just about staring at our shoelaces and thinking about things year to year. We had a multi-year outlook that we brought to bear to understand what our basic cost structure would be. We developed very clear targets for colleagues around the cabinet table to support us getting to that $498 million deficit number, to continue making progress towards that balanced budget target for next fiscal. That didn't happen by accident. And so what I'm confident about is that we have done the work necessary to set us on a good, fiscally sustainable path. And I'm also confident that we're going to continue to do the important work of communicating how we came to this budget number with credit rating agencies, with investors, And we're going to keep doing that great work of meeting with them to make sure that they have every opportunity to dig in to our assumptions, to dig into our structure that we've brought forward, and to help them understand the important work that we're doing to stay on that fiscally sustainable path.
The honourable member for Midland.
I'll rephrase the question. Does the minister expect Manitoba will receive a downgrade from a credit rating agency?
The honourable minister of finance.
Again, Chair, what we're confident in is that we've done the work. And that work involved, again, many long nights with this, actually both these gentlemen here that are sitting in front of me, where we worked, and I think we're very thorough in, first of all, putting forward an overall structure that will help us, helped us to understand what our cost pressures would be over the coming years. We were very intentional and deliberate about looking at major spending decisions to understand how those would map over our core cost structure. And then from there, we were very deliberate in ensuring that colleagues around the cabinet table were able to participate in that work of getting to that $500 million deficit number through doing the hard work of going back with their departments, bringing focus to their estimates proposals, bringing focus to ensure that together as a team, we're working to ensure that we deliver on a fiscally sustainable path forward. I'm incredibly proud of that. And again, we're doing this in a very, of course, challenging economic environment where provinces and countries around the world are facing economic headwinds. And again, we're proud to be doing that because we know that right now, during this period where we are facing those increased levels of challenge, of course, from tariffs to the south of us and beyond, that work has never been more important, that work has never been more essential in ensuring that we can continue to make investments in the areas that we know are important, like healthcare, like improving affordability, like making Manitoba into a safer province to live. So again, that deficit number didn't happen by accident. We're confident that we've done the good work of setting us on a strong, fiscally sustainable path. And we're very confident that we're going to continue to do the work of working closely with credit rating agencies to make sure they have every opportunity to engage us on our assumptions and how we came to those numbers and how we developed the budget, because we know that's important. So we're going to keep focusing on that. And I'm looking forward to our trip in a few weeks where we're going to get to have those very conversations.
The honourable member for Midland.
Sounds like the minister is a little nervous about answering with certainty whether Manitoba may or may not receive a credit rating downgrade by the credit rating agencies. So perhaps the minister, I didn't receive an answer to one of my previous questions, but hypothetically, for his sake, in the event that Manitoba does receive a credit rating downgrade, what would be, even by a single point, so let's say a single point, what would that be that interest to Manitoba taxpayers?
The honourable minister of finance.
Ultimately, the impacts of that type of eventuality would play out through the spreads and changes in spreads for our province. But again, so very difficult to answer the question in an accurate way. What we can say is that as a government, we're working very hard to make sure that we deliver on that goal and on that commitment to Manitobans, which is a balanced budget next year. Again, I think it's a great opportunity to reread some of the helpful or some of the headlines that we saw. For example, DBRS, credit rating agency, balance within reach. We're seeing some amazing quotes from, for example, major financial institutions that have some computing capacity, like BMO. The bottom line, Manitoba looks to be on track to achieve surplus by fiscal year 27-28, despite a backdrop of elevated uncertainty. The province's diverse economic base and attractiveness for infrastructure projects leaves it well positioned to benefit from efforts to boost Canada's resilience. So what we're seeing again is a very favorable response to our budget, to the forecast contained within it, and ultimately we're going to keep doing that important work because we know that with this increased focus and continued focus on fiscal sustainability, that will give us the resources and the dollars we need to keep making the important investments that need to be made after years of cuts and chainsaw hacking away at every department. for example, areas like healthcare, education, and community safety. So we're going to keep doing that important work. And again, to the very specific question that was asked, impossible to calculate that because it will all come down to decisions from investors about spreads that would ultimately enlarge should that eventuality come to pass. We're going to keep working to ensure Manitoba our credit ratings stay at the levels that they're at, and hopefully we're going to see them improve.
The honourable member for Midland.
Yeah, thank you. Just in the spirit of time, I just wanted to revert back to some questions I asked at the beginning of this estimates process and just clarify a couple of the numbers that the minister provided as it relates to the advertising budget. So the minister had indicated that $1.6 million is the global advertising budget. He then indicated that $174,000 is specific to the budget itself, including the PST at grocery stores. So can the minister please tell us where the rest of the $1.4 million of that advertising budget is going to?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. So the response has not come as of yet. What I would say is I think we're probably going to be sitting in committee again tomorrow, so I'll commit to bringing that answer tomorrow when it comes forward.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Okay, in the meantime, while he's collecting that information for tomorrow, can he also, if he doesn't have the answer today, also tell us how much has been spent to date on the budget from that advertising budget?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Chair. So again, in the interest of time, we'll come back with more information. I can share that, of course, this year so far, the main thrust of those expenditures will be expenditures tied to this year's budget-related printing. But one thing I'm happy to talk about was, as part of those costs, is a large poster that the member might have seen that highlights that Manitoba had the lowest deficit as a percentage of GDP in Canada. If she hasn't seen that, I'm happy to show it to her. It'd be wonderful if she's interested in checking that out. I have it prominently displayed in my office now. Premier was dragging it around for a while. But that would be one small piece, of course, of those overall costs we'll share more about tomorrow.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Thank you. The Minister in his comments at some point this afternoon, either his introductory or beyond, mentioned BITSA. So can the Minister please tell us when he expects to table BITSA?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Yes, appreciate the question very much. We'll not be sharing that information today, but I am looking forward to seeing the member hopefully support the elements within BITSA and, of course, the overall budget, like taking the PSD off all groceries in our grocery stores, like reducing costs for childcare for those families that need the most help, like taking the costs for bus fare off of family budgets for kids. So we know that there's some really important affordability measures coming forward in BITSA and overall with budget, and eager to see if the members wanting to support those measures to support folks across the province to lower their costs.
The Honourable Member for Midland.
Thank you. In last year's budget, the minister ended indexation of income taxes, which indexation is a widely held and common policy across Canada. In fact, Ontario, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Nova Scotia, Yukon, and Northwest Territories all index annually. Clearly indexation is the default and responsible policy across Canada. Can the minister explain his justification for ending indexation and pushing Manitobans into a higher tax bracket?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you so much, Chair. So again, appreciate an opportunity to talk about the important work we've done to reduce taxes for Manitobans. The member will know that shortly after we came in, we brought in a really significant personal income tax reduction for Manitobans. We made a huge lift to the basic personal amount or the basic personal exemption. And of course, we also made some changes to brackets that saw many more dollars for Manitobans being taxed at a lower tax rate, overall reducing their personal income tax burden in many cases by thousands of dollars. So I think that was a really important move that we made coming in as a new government, and I think a really solid sign of our commitment to reducing taxes and costs. Of course, they'll know our gas tax elimination for a full year brought an incredible amount of savings to Manitobans. And then we didn't stop that after that year. Of course, we brought in a permanent 10% cut, which we know is important in continuing to provide benefits to Manitobans at a time.
Order. The hour being 5 p.m. Committee rise and call on the Speaker. The hour being 5 p.m., this House is adjourned and stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow.